Every year about this time, Guam reflects on the tragic time of war on our soil. Today on Something to Talk About, we speak to the organizers of one of the most moving memorials at Manengan. That conversation ahead on Something to Talk About. Welcome to Something to Talk About. It is nice to have you along with us on a topic that comes up at this time every year. This is one of the first events that takes place even before we talk about the carnival and the parade and the fireworks. We have to step back for a second and remember why we have gotten to the point where we are at this time of year, Liberation. I'm going to introduce to you some fine folks that will talk to us about the first real big event, and that's the Manengan Memorial. The folks from the foundation, Willie Flores is here, and of course, Senator Tina Muñoz-Barnes, whose office has been very instrumental. Even before the foundation was actually coming together, Senator Tina Muñoz-Barnes' office was pretty much in charge of basically facilitating and getting everybody together. Can we just real quickly, before we talk about the service that's coming up, let's talk about Manengan as some sacred ground. Let's talk about that. What would you like to offer as a historical perspective?
Well, the one thing that we like to do is to remind folks that, you know, Manengan and Tinta, Faja, Fena, those places were really the last places that the Chamorros ever did together as a people. If you think about the way our history has unfolded, you'll realize that Manengan is probably represents the last of our people doing something together. Now, the reason and purpose for that doing is something that is, you know, horrible. It's not something that anyone would desire, but it really was a testament to our people that because of our family values and because of our personal values about caring for people, that our Manaina were able to survive that really, really bad time.
Yeah. You know, Patty, the Manengan concentration camp is by far the largest. By accounting and documentaries, there was anywhere between 15 and 20,000 folks, Chamorros, that had to march down to the concentration camps. You know, the good Senator Willie talked about the other campsites. You know, you've got Chagouin, you've got Fena, you've got Faja, Tinta, Asmafit, you've got some other camps that only those who survived the war may be able to tell stories about. But Manengan by far was the largest, where all our Chamorros had to march to. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that even one of our founding members, former First Lady Jerry Gutierrez, she was there during the march, and it was her mother who died during the march, protecting and hovering over her in order to protect her as she was being bayoneted.
And she was just
a baby.
A baby.
Yeah.
We've heard that story many times, and it evokes emotion from a lot of people who get that. And there are still people who live among us that get that feeling. Yeah. Can we talk, just for the benefit of those who don't understand, what took place during that period of the war where Chamorros were gathered and forced to march this long distance?
Well, by June and July 1944, the occupying Japanese forces already realized that it was over for them, and so it became a matter of figuring out how to survive, a matter of survival for them. So sometime the first recorded documentation that we have of the order being given out to go and gather the Chamorros to a central place, we know the first order came out on July 10th. And that's why the first year that we actually had the big celebration, or not celebration, I'm sorry, it's not celebration, but celebration of life maybe. But the big service was, the first year we held it on July 10th. And so then another order came out on July 12th. And so what was happening was the Japanese forces ordered as many Chamorros as possible from Inarahan all the way to Jigo. Gathered, bring them down. And so they were brought down. The Jigo folks were brought down through Finigazan, through Barrigada.
How were they transported? Was marching?
They were forced to march. Pregnant, old, they didn't care. Sick, they did not care.
We
And
even had those from Agate that had to march
Yes.
to Menengan.
yeah, and so you were sick, you were old, you were pregnant. They didn't care, and so that's it became our own trail of tears, if you want to put it that way. And for some people, it was really a death march. The people would stumble, and many of them had bare feet. They were carrying infants. They would stumble, and the other people would say, get up, kahulu, kahulu, because they would be tortured. And my own grandparents, my mother used to tell us a story of her grandmother and her grandfather would stumble, and the Japanese soldiers would come with the bamboo canes or with the back of their rifles, and they would hit the bottom of their feet. And so many of these people had to be gathered. The folks from Inarahan came. Many of them stayed in Omafit. Many more were taken to Mata up in Talafofo. And Talafofo actually had two camps, one for the Talafofo residents, which is over towards where As Lucas is now, and the other in Mata, where, between right at the entrance of the village. And so what happened was, as far as we can tell, the Manchurian soldiers, the ones that came from Manchuria and from Asia, the battle-hardened soldiers, were the ones assigned to do the dirty work. And they were the ones, of course, you hear tales of soldiers who had been here throughout the war and had made friends with the local folks, with our folks, telling them how to survive, how to be rescued, how to get away.
How to share the food.
How to share the food.
They
But then
received.
you had these other guys that had no personal connection with the folks, and they were the majority, and they were mean, and they cared not if they tortured you or killed you. And we have many people who died on the way from north, from south, and at Menengan, and we have no idea where they are buried. So,
Amazing.
yeah.
It's an amazing story that you hear. What's interesting is that story has been told from the first day that somebody was able to account what had happened to this very day, and it doesn't waver. You know what I mean? It's not like there are sub stories
Right.
that make it difficult to fact check and fact check.
You know, Patty, some of the survivors that got the opportunity to come to the memorial service, sometimes even after the mass, they would just sit there, look at the jungle, and you could see their tears coming out, and they would be saying in Chamorro, I still don't know where my brother is buried. I still don't know where they buried my sister. If I could just, know, it'd be so much easier for me. Yeah. And once they're there, some of them find it as a way of finding peace within themselves, finding and letting go. And then some of them still don't want to forgive. They say they forgive, but they'll never forget.
Of course, yeah. And that's the hardest part, because people are still agonized by a memory that our generation would never ever know.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that it's an emotion that still thrives in our community, in our island, and that you don't find that anywhere else in America.
You know, my mother said that she prays every day that her children and her grandchildren don't ever go through what they had to experience.
Yeah.
And just every time she prays and she thinks about what happened during the war, she's done a couple of interviews and she said it hurts every time. But she doesn't ever want her children or her grandchildren to ever go through what she and others had to go through, seeing the beatings of their parents, seeing how brothers had to fight for food or go out and scrounge for food just to be able to bring a little back, hide and bring a little back. The sufferings that happened near the river, how they had to eat, drink, bathe from the same dirty
Source,
water
Same
that
water
was
source,
there in the river, and they say it was an act of God because they survived. They survived that war. If we were to do something like that today, oh my God, we'd all be sick.
Absolutely. What has been done with that site since the beginning of when the first organization of people to go down there, provide a place to pray and remember.
Yeah, we have a lot of partners in this, you know, and a lot of partners. And what I really appreciate about our partners is that they're primarily unsung, you know. Mike Makio of Taniguchi, Makio, you know, Taniguchi Ruth Makio, he laid out our master plan. So we have the master plan that we're still working on. The only thing that we've gotten up there is the actual memorial, the front memorial.
Monument.
The monument is there with the fountain. We have the monument with the fountain. We've had some of the surviving Manamco plant EFIT trees down there. And so our next big push now will be to go up the hill, because Manengan straddles 2 hills and 2 rivers converging. Mm-hmm. And so we are right at the Y of the river. And our next is to go up to the top of the hill. We want to create the monument up there. And so we are, that is our next big task right now. Task at hand, most important task at hand, is to get as many of the recollections as we can and get as many of the survivors we know that, you know, so that we can recognize them. One of the hardest things, Patty, is that many of the survivors, as the senator was saying, still can't talk about it, you know, and they won't talk about it. And so from...
Is it hard enough to get them down there?
Oh,
Yes.
it's very hard.
We're going to talk about what we're talking about, getting down there. There is a memorial service that has been going on for many years now.
Almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years.
If not over.
So we're going to be talking about that because one is coming up on July 24th. We're talking to the Manengan Memorial Foundation, of course, and Senator Tina Muñoz Barnes. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back. And welcome back. We're guesting. We have guests with us today. Willie Flores from the Manengan Memorial Foundation. Senator Tina Muñoz Barnes. Thanks for joining us. We're talking.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
I mean, you can't tell the story or celebrate liberation or have your sights on anything about liberation unless you can have people remember these atrocities and things that happened to our Chamorros back during the war. The Manengan Memorial Foundation has put together this plan to erect an actual obelisk, or what is it?
There's a monument that's there already, and it was a saying. It was there since 2004. There are plans to have an audiovisual room and then a peace garden there also, like what Senator Willie was talking about earlier. But what we really want to do as the foundation is to continue to recollect and have the stories told.
Yeah.
So many of our elders are dying. My mother is 82, going to be 83.
My dad's 90.
And you know what? They're the very few left. I know that with the efforts of also Senator Frank Bloss, who does the Sentimental Journey and telling the story, we, a part of the Manengan Memorial Foundation, have been able to come together annually to have a memorial service and a memorial mass to honor and pay tribute to those who died and survived the atrocities of World War II. We, Patty, invite the whole island of Guam, and even if you don't have any family members there, if you want to come, please, we are asking you to join us on that day.
Now,
as we remember.
do you have like a running register?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Since we first started doing this, you know, every year we register, and what we want to do is we register folks and find out where they are, so we can, you know, make the family ties, find out where you are, register you, where did you come from, you know, during the thing, and so for a couple of years, some of the folks like from Asinan, you know, Auntie Ann Palomo, she was, you know, she said, "What about Asinan?" I said, "Okay, that is our fault. We did not get the message out that we want everybody." So Omafit, Asinan, Chagrian, we want, and we do not want to miss anyone, because that site there is a memorial for, you know, Chamorro strength, human strength, and, you know, for faith in God.
You know,
so, yeah.
it must have been, and I don't know how many stories have been told about that, but that was the largest concentration of Chamorros that had been brought there to.
Yes.
And from that population, there were men that were taken
Yes.
and
Yes.
ordered to go to these other sites
Yes.
that we're
And
talking
did
about
not make it.
and didn't make it.
Like Chagouin.
Yeah,
Yes.
like Chagouin, exactly.
Yeah.
45 soldiers that they thought by helping the Japanese bring the artillery up to Jigo, that their lives would probably be spared,
Spared,
but
yeah.
they weren't. They were all
And
decapitated.
so at that point, when it got to the point where they were transporting men from Jaguin, it must have been for the remaining families watching hordes of their men being loaded onto trucks and whether or not you'll ever see them again. So for a lot of people, that was a burial ground, although they are not physically there. That was the last
Oh,
time
yeah.
they saw their loved one.
Definitely. Well, we were. I personally was fortunate because my dad and my grandfather, his father, were taken, and they carried munitions up to Chagouin. But they were lucky because they escaped.
They ran away.
They ran away, and I guess it was 2000. The last time that Sus Chamorro, attended the. No, the first time that he attended, he was walking around. I recall this vividly. He was walking around with tears in his eyes. And I looked at him and I pulled him to the side. I said, Tunsus, what's wrong? I mean, is this too strong for you? And he said, no, boy, I'm thinking about the 14 men, was it 14? From Agat that were taken.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of this. 14 men from Agat were taken to carry munitions to Manengan, and their families never saw them again.
Yeah.
And today, still in Agat, now we're finding the families of those men we've had one lady willing to talk about it a little, but it's just too too painful.
Still
yeah.
painful.
And it's really hard to convince them to speak.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so intimate and it's
Yeah.
so painful. It comes from such a painful place. It's like forcing them to recount something they don't really want to recount.
Right, and when ladies are forced, because every other day or so the Japanese would come and take the young girls that they wanted to have their way with them. When ladies were forced to kill a chicken or whatever they found, fish, and smear the blood all over the front of themselves to make it look like
They were unapproachable.
they were
too.
unapproachable.
Yeah.
That saved. We've heard so many stories
Oh.
of
Of
that
saving women.
their women. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Otherwise, they would have. So there's many emotions. I've heard the theory that the Japanese took the Chamorros down there to protect them, but that theory has mostly been proposed by folks who weren't at Manengan. The folks who made it to Manengan, it was very obviously clear to them that
That they weren't going to have
Oh yeah.
life.
Unless something
that
intervened,
something was
it
going
was
to
it.
happen.
How did it finally come to an end for those in the final days?
Well, that's a beautiful story. I mean, that,
Yeah.
the kids, the Japanese were telling kids, nobody can go out, you can't, but the kids were going out foraging for food and stuff, right? And so you hear all these different stories, but the best story that I like personally,
Marian Taitano?
yeah, because the kids are going, right? Imagine you're a 12, 13-year-old kid running around trying to get food, and then you come out, you open, and there's this big guy with a gun. Obviously not, you're not a Japanese
So,
soldier.
Auntie
Who have you
Marian-
been waiting for, right?
Auntie Marian Taitano said it best. She said when she saw the military men coming down with machine guns and everything, she said, "Oh my God, they're Greek gods coming to save us." And it was such a beautiful story because they realized at heart that that they weren't forgotten by the Americans, and that they were going to come to save them. But there were still other stories out there
I'm
that
sure
weren't
that there
so
were a lot.
happy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of people who were in shock.
They were.
Yeah. To
Yes.
not know that they were actually free or
Right.
liberated.
Yes.
They were.
And probably stayed and
Yeah.
did whatever they could to make sure that until they knew for sure
Yeah,
that
and-
they were free to go.
Yeah, and one of the most beautiful stories was the kid. The soldier said, "Shh, shh, don't tell anybody we're here." Well, what's the first thing the kids do? They run back to the camp and say, "My guy give me the condom. My guy give me the condom. The Americans are here." And so, so the Americans had to rush in and
I think also the chocolates that were
the
shared by
chocolates
some
that
of,
were shared and the
by
cigarettes
the soldiers and the cigarettes
and
too.
the cigarettes, yeah. So
Yeah.
But a lot of the stories are
Well,
very similar.
It is, and the thing is that what's interesting is when people talk about the Chamorros' relationship with the military.
Yeah.
If you can remember that,
Yeah.
if you were liberated and you were there to see it with your own eyes, it's really hard to tell somebody.
Yeah.
That emotion that they had at the time could have been invalidated because of everything that's happened with the relationship forward. But that's a political thing. That's not necessarily here nor there.
Well, the Manamko, as you say, the Manamko say, that was a very defining moment in their life. The military came and saved them. Face it, many of us, if the military didn't come, we wouldn't be here. You know, let's face it. But all those other things that happen, that's the normal course of governing.
They're very
you know,
appreciative for
yeah,
the freedoms
Yeah.
that they have.
but-
The freedoms that we have today is because they're very appreciative that Uncle Sam came back.
So let's try and figure out how we can inspire people or motivate people who you would like to come to the memorial. First of all, it's on July 24th.
It's on July 24th. We're encouraging people to come down around 2 or 2:30. What's going to happen is the Manamco and those who can't drive will be allowed to drive in. Everybody else is going to asked to park outside.
Elig Bridge.
Yes, the Elig Bridge. We have, and your cars. There'll be security there to take care of your cars, and the bus and the trolley will be
Shuttling the back.
people in and out. Then around 10 to 3 or closer to 3 maybe, we'll start the walk-in. Every year we have a memorial run. This year we didn't do it because everybody was burnt out from Festback, right? But we have a walk-in, and so we walk in from the beginning of Elig all the way into Menengan.
It's about a mile and a half.
About a mile and a half, and we do that walk in honor of the Manamco. So, you know, unless you come down and experience it for yourself, you're not going to realize how meaningful this is. We've had several people that were not even from here walk with us, and
It's
you know,
moving. It's
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah, yeah.
And we also,
Totally
if
in
the
tears
survivors
by the
would
time
like
they
to
get there.
come,
Yeah.
we know that they can't walk long. They will be able to get on the trolley
Yeah. Okay.
and sit in the trolley and be able to have those of us who can walk in. We've also had several military families who
Oh, yeah,
joined
yeah.
us. The Akfaji family, Julie Akfaji and Jesse and their whole family, take the time because they're in the Menengan area and walk with us in as part of remembering her parents, the Akfaji family. So I'm just very grateful that we have people who continue to do this with us. But again, we extend the invitation to everybody out there.
Tell them right away.
It's July 24th. The memorial mass will be at 4 p.m. It would be done by Father Eric Forbes, and the service and the march into the Menengan site will begin at 2:45.
Yeah.
Is there a phone number that you want people to call
Yes.
if they would like to register? Or
Yes, please call Senator Barnes' office at 472-3455 or 56. Please call the Jonia Mayor's office, and it's in the phone book. I don't have it on the top of
And
my
we
head.
want to thank
and ask for Jesse.
And ask for
Jesse
Jesse
Blas.
Blas, yeah.
and the First Lady.
And then you can call the protocol office of the governor's office or the First Lady's office.
Okay.
And we want to thank them for their
Yeah.
support.
Oh,
They've been very
really supportive, yeah. And
helpful with
or you may call my office at 646-1714. But yeah, and unless you come and experience it for yourself, I mean, you can feel the emotion, you can feel the history that's down there just by being.
You could
down
hear the
there.
wind talking to you.
And now you know. Happy Liberation Day to all. Thank you for joining us, and thank you very much, Tina. Thank you, Willie.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Patty.
Have a nice evening.